How's it going, Luka Nation? Luka Nation Conrad here, of course, back with the weekly episode, the weekly Starstock episode, and of course, I'm going to give my quick 10-minute or so breakdown on the Starstock Emerging 30 Index. So let me share my screen right here. There we go. All right. So for those of you that don't know how to get to the index yourself, if you want to go a little bit more in depth, you go to the Starstock website, scroll down here, and you will see NBA Emerging 30, and then you can click View the Index, and you have the whole thing at your fingertips rather than my breakdown that I'll be bringing you today. So if you do want to do a little bit more education yourself, you can go ahead and do it using the steps that I just gave you. So let's get into this one today. March 29th, the weekly breakdown. And first player up is going to be Trae Young. He was trailing behind. However, he's finally kind of catching up, gaining a little bit of ground as far as prices go, because the Hawks have been on an absolute tear recently. They started off the season pretty hot, then they kind of fell off for a little while, and Trae Young especially was struggling for a little bit there. But now both he and the team have finally started to pick some things back up. The team's kind of recovering from injuries. They had a lot of people out: Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, Chris Dunn, Rajon Rondo. A lot of guys were out throughout the season, and that didn't exactly help them improve as a team, right? They kind of rely on their depth. And when you have a lot of guys out, you know, it kind of sucks. It kind of makes your team just a little bit worse, but they're finally sitting at 500, sixth in the Eastern Conference, which is much improved from 11th, where they used to be sitting only just about a week or two ago. During this recent stretch, Trae has had multiple 30 or near 30-point games. But in my opinion, actually, a big reason that Trae did jump up 26.7% this week was because they made a trade for Lou Williams. While I personally do think it was a bit of a downgrade from Rajon Rondo, a lot of people care more, I think, about Lou Williams, and they care more about scoring, which is something I guess that Lou Williams provides, over defense and over some playmaking, which is stuff that Rondo does a bit better than Williams, right? And I don't think that the trade for Lou Williams is the reason people bought Trae Young, but I do think that could have been like the final straw, right? If people were on the fence, they're like, I don't know if I want to buy Trae Young or not. I'm not sure if I really like this. I'm not sure if I trust the Hawks, blah, 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 blah. Whatever their reason may be, getting them to trade Rajon Rondo for Lou Williams and 2 second-round picks, that was like, okay, that's it. That puts it over the edge. I'm going to do it. I'm going to commit. And that was what made them hop off the fence, I guess is how you could put it, and decide to buy up some Trae Young cards because he was definitely dipping. I dropped 14.3% last week and has now gained 26.7%, sitting at about $190 for his base Prism rookie card. Next up, Tyler Herro is a superhero, or at least his price jump would make you believe that. He jumped up 13.3% from $45 to $51 this week. And while the Heat were on a very hot streak for a while, I believe they were either 11-1 or 11-2, they have lost 6 straight games since then. However, during that time, I just smacked my hand against the desk, excuse me. However, during that time, people did notice that Herro had recently hit an all-time low, $45, like I just said, right? And during that time as well, he had almost a near 30-point game, very similar to Trae Young. And I think that just both of those two things combined kind of made people think, he's pretty low. He just scored almost 30 points. We know that the kid is talented. The Heat looked good, or did look good, I guess, beforehand. I'm going to buy some. It may be a little bit of a gamble, but I think it's worth it considering how low the prices are right now. Something I do want to mention, which isn't just specific to Tyler Herro, but it's also I guess speculative young players is the best way to put it. We can expect these kinds of jumps and this volatility from young players that we still don't know the ceiling of, right? These speculative young players, right? Because there are players that we kind of do know the ceiling of. We know Luka Doncic is already going to be one of the best players in the league for a while. Of course, this is all if players don't get injured, right? Like, we know how good Luka Doncic can be. We know how dangerous Jason Tatum could be. We know how dangerous Brandon Ingram or Trae Young or whoever you want to say. We know how dangerous they can be. Tyler Herro is kind of a case of he could take a step to the next level, or maybe he stays in the role that he's currently in. no one really knows for sure just how good he's going to get or just how good he can get throughout the course of his career, right? So this kind of volatility and these kind of price jumps from these players, especially throughout their first couple of seasons, can be expected and should be something that you should be ready for when you do commit to buying these young and speculative players. Excuse me. Third player up is Lowry Marketing, who barely missed the deadline. He had a very disappointing year last season, and of course, much of that was due to misutilization from Jim Boylan, basically just using him as a spot-up shooter on the perimeter. And while he is being used better, I guess, under the coaching of Billy Donovan, his game is still very one-dimensional, basically just a stretch forward with average defense. He is getting the ball more, so he's able to attack the basket a little bit more, but other than that, not really much improvement on the offensive side of the ball and not really much on the defensive side of the ball either. And of course, because the team is doing so bad, there just isn't a lot going for him as far as card prices go, or as far as making his card prices a little bit higher than where they currently sit. But the reason, or the biggest reason, that we saw a near 10% dip, in my opinion, was because he never got traded, right? There were a lot of rumors floating around, and many fans expected him to potentially be traded at the deadline, but that never happened. Instead, Wendell Carter was traded, and I believe it was Otto Porter Jr. was traded as well in order to land Nikola Vucevic. And so I think because he was never moved, card prices dipped a little bit more. People are starting to speculate when trades are going on, right? So, because a lot of times when a player does get traded, their card prices take off by a drastic measure. And other players associated with that move tend to also take off as well. But because many people expected him to potentially be traded at the deadline, because he wasn't, card prices dipped because people were speculating that he would, and they're not willing to pay the prices that he's currently sitting at. So they're kind of trying to get out of his cards before they can potentially dip even lower than they already have. The final player on the list, a major crash from this player. Collin Sexton's team sucks. Sexton himself is having a fantastic season, and he's averaging a career high 24 points a game on very good efficiency. And while he has done very well individually this year, his team is not exactly performing quite up to par. And now that the Cavs have officially gotten rid of DeAndre Drummond, I combined DeAndre Jordan and Andre Drummond there, excuse me. Now that the Cavs have officially let go of Andre Drummond, it's obvious that the team isn't going to be much better in the near future, and a rebuild is most certainly going to be underway. Hopefully, they kind of started a rebuild not too long ago, but they didn't really fully commit to it because they kept Kevin Love and they got Andre Drummond and all these other pieces that weren't really fitting the timeline. But I think now they're officially committing to a rebuild, and I think that we can all really expect that to go underway within the next couple of seasons, and hopefully they can make some progress, right? But something to mention about Collin Sexton, he was climbing up the ladder of card prices for a while. I think it was about 5 straight weeks, just kept getting higher and higher and higher and higher. And I believe he reached $61 at his high. Then, as you can see here, if you're watching this on video, March 15th, he hit $51, which was a 20.3% dip from the peak. $42 on March 22nd, which was a 17.6% dip. And today, $20, which is a 52.4% drop off in prices. That is just crazy. I mean, maybe it's a really good buy right now because obviously we do know that he is a very good player. The team itself just has to perform a little bit better, right? But a 52.44% drop, we have not seen that in a while. Let me do a little bit of scrolling here and see if we have seen a drop that size ever. Not really. I mean, if you're watching this on video, you can see he did drop 50.5% on February 15th, and a guy right above him, Darius Bazley, dipped by 40.9% that same week. But other than that, oh, okay, right here, Zion dipping by 44%, but there's not a lot of movement or a lot of drop-offs that have been quite that size. In fact, that's the highest percentage that I have seen. That's actually the only percentage that I've seen over 50%. Actually, I lied. There's Ja Morant right here, 53.1%. But that's going to be all I have for you guys today on those four. I do want to mention one quick thing before I go. A lot of guys in the red. We've seen 4 guys making a little bit of traction, gaining a little bit of traction. 4 guys stay stagnant, but the other 22 have all seen a dip. One thing to note, though, is if you are looking at this, Marvin Bagley, Darius Garland, Kyle Kuzma, Kobe White, Cam Reddish, Donovan Mitchell, those guys, all 5 of those guys right there are under 4% in as far as the drop off goes. So while they are dipping a little bit, it's nothing so drastic that you should be freaking out. You're like, holy cow, 25 guys in the red. The whole market is crashing. And while we are experiencing a dip in the card market, it's not quite as drastic as you may first think. But once again, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you really enjoy my part of the segment, or my segment for this episode. But now get back to Cajun Andrew and enjoy the rest of the episode. I'll see you guys next time.